Hey, welcome. My name is Cord Demas. I am a performance physical therapist here at Vitality Therapy and Performance. Today's episode is on running. With me, I have Chris.
My name is Chris Contois. I'm a PT with over 15 years of experience, and I've treated several thousand runners at Olympic to recreational levels.
And then if you're bad with names, I have Chris over here as well.
Yeah, so I'm Chris, also a PT here. Haven't treated as many runners as the other Chris, but enjoy it as well.
So stay tuned for some pretty good content. So the question sent in was, what are the most common issues that you guys find with runners, since we see so many runners? So I say we break that. What are the top three? Three things are warm up. I'd say volume management. So we'll break that down. And then I would say kind of the misconception of I'm just going to run regardless of what my body is telling me.
Like it's on the schedule, so I have to run. Isn't a good way to do things.
Yeah.
Start with the warm up, since that's kind of the beginning of the day, I guess.
So most people don't.
Right. I mean, it's called a warm up for a reason. You should be warm. So most people who run, or at least that come in and see us, the big thing you hear is like, oh, I need that first mile or 2 miles to get warmed up. Well, that's what your warm up's for. Like, so if you do a dynamic warm up, you should be kind of sweaty before you get out there and run. So it shouldn't take that 1 to 2 miles to get you going. And maybe it takes a minute to just get your pacing down, but you shouldn't feel like there's a slog to begin with.
Okay, so the most common question I get with that is, why can't I just use my run as a warm-up?
I actually had an interesting moment. I was mowing the lawn yesterday or the day before, and my weed eater is really difficult to get going. It's like an old gas one. It takes like 50 strokes to get going. And on the little side, it's got like these 3 steps on how to actually, like, you have to prime it this certain way, and then you have to pull the cord 5 times and then flip the switch to the next one and then pull the cord 10 times. And then you're ready to go.
Jeez.
And I was like, man, this is kind of like this is what you should do before you lift. Like, you need to have an orderly step of things that you do before you get going. It was really annoying, but
one, you need a new weed eater. Holy cow. 2, I think the biggest thing I explain to people is until you reach a certain heart rate, and we know that it's at least 100 for a few minutes, the blood in your body, a lot of it is in your organs, your non-essential organs. So the whole point of the warm-up is to get blood to leave your non-essential organs and go to the areas you need them.
Yeah, it's literally to prepare your muscles to begin to do something. And if you're a runner and maybe you are having some problems, running is just a pattern. And if you have a faulty pattern, you're only going to use the same thing too much or the same thing too little. So by doing a multifaceted approach of a warm-up, we should hit the things that either are being used too little or being used too much.
So, okay, so that's a great lead in to, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I was going to ask, how long is a good warm-up?
I mean, like obviously I'm not a runner, but like, so mine takes me 15 minutes.
So I am a runner. Mine takes me probably 5 to 7, all dynamic.
Yeah, all dynamic.
Right. I don't sit there and stretch my hamstrings statically.
No.
I don't do the curb calf stretch. Most of what I see out on the running trail is they will do a curb calf stretch,
little
toe touch, and then 5 to 10 high knees, and then they're off.
Little open it and then let's go.
Right. So I will go through, even on the sidewalk in front of my house at 6 o'clock in the morning with people driving by to go to work. I will go through inchworms, knee hugs, Frankensteins. I'll go through world's greatest.
Quad stretch. Reach back
as I go onto my tiptoes and walk down.
I do double leg and single leg hops because I need my foot to take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think a good length is not as important as just an overall efficiency. And especially if you've got something that's nagging you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when you need somebody build you a warm up almost.
And the more you do a warm up, the more you're gonna be acclimated to just like, it's almost like the mental preparation of like, I'm going to run,
Yeah.
you know, like it's just getting you set. It's the same way a warm up is for working out of like, okay, I'm about to lift heavy things. I do these things so I can lift heavy things.
Yeah. Yeah. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. We deal with this a lot, right?
Yeah, that's the most common thing.
It's, hey, I'm in here to see you because XYZ hurts. But Saturday, I've got 16 miles on the schedule.
Or there's a 10K that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or even a new runner. I've got 3 miles on Saturday.
Right.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So typically I don't like to say no is the way I will do it, unless I think that you are in danger of
Right.
hurting something. So like there's two ways that I will tend to approach it. One is either let's just decrease your overall the amount that you're going to run, where so if it's a 6, we need to cut it down by at least 50% in my opinion. So then we'll do a 3. Or can you do intervals of that 6, walk, run, that type of thing, and be pain-free? Like both of them need to be pain-free to do it. And obviously, if you're a new runner, you may not know your body as well to know which one of those is going to work. Established runners tend to know which one's going to help them more.
Now, you said something that is crucial because you want to drop it by 50% to an average runner, someone who doesn't study what we study.
Yeah.
The question we get asked is like, what's if I'm going to run, I might as well just run the distance prescribed. So what are we doing in the tissue by dropping it to 50% or less?
I mean, like part of it is just we're just decreasing your overall load, right? So like we're not causing as much stress. If you already have something that is mad at the steps of becoming an actual injury and we just ignore that, it becomes an actual injury. So by this, we're decreasing the overall load, decreasing the stress, and hopefully either reducing the chances that are going to be injury, or hopefully we're more focused on the small amount that you do run so that you're a more efficient runner and you don't hurt that tissue further.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and when we come back to volume management, on not overloading the tissue to create injury, this goes into when you have irritation. If you can decrease your volume and decrease the amount of inflammation and irritation to that tissue, then you give it a better chance to heal without taking complete time off.
Right. Like a little bit is better than none, right? Like in the sense of like dropping it down by, even if we dropped it down like 60-70%, that's still better than 0 miles if you incur an injury, right? So,
or miss a day.
Yeah. Like miss a day, like a day is not going to make or break you.
Yeah.
Something that always comes up, especially in runners, because runners run, they like to run.
Runners run.
How long do I have to do that for?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the answer is it depends, right? Like, did you just get a stress fracture? Yeah, we're going to be doing this for a long time. Have you been having pain for 2 runs? It's probably not going to be that long, but hopefully we can address. We have to find the underlying issue. Is it a weakness issue? Is it a form issue? Is it both? We address those things and hopefully they start to, what's the word? Basically start to learn from their mistakes and correct the problem, right?
You know, and I think that's where we come in as performance-based PTs. The misconception is if I go in for an evaluation, they're going to tell me to stop running. Or we hear this, they're going to say, you know, it's not like I do CrossFit.
Right.
But anything done improperly, repetitively is going to cause trauma.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you throw a baseball incorrectly as hard as you can 80 times, you're going to hurt.
Yeah.
Tennis serve. You run a marathon and you have inefficiencies in your pattern.
Or like the one that you'll have people like, oh, well, so I started swimming because swimming is really low impact. If you swim with really bad form, your shoulder's going to let you know you're swimming with really bad form.
Yeah.
Like anything that we do repetitively, sitting at a desk repetitively causes problems. We have to try to do it as well as we can.
So how long is dependent on what are you doing to fix the problem? With so many symptom chasers in healthcare and just in the general public of like, well, it hurt. I took 5 days off. It stopped hurting. So I ran again. A week later, it started hurting again.
And my first run was a 3, normally it's supposed to be a 6, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And then I went to my 10 and it killed me. You're like, yeah,
Yeah, we didn't fix the
Right,
issue.
right, you felt better. And your body's like, oh, okay, like that stress is gone, but we never addressed what caused the problem to begin
Yeah.
with.
And that's big.
Yeah,
in
and
what
that's,
we do.
you know, that's typically, unfortunately, a much longer aspect of it, but that doesn't mean that you have to stop running. It's addressing it through a warm up and corrective exercise and form change
Mhm.
to address those things.
Like my video analysis of my running.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
that was interesting.
I was running at good paces. I liked my times, but I was feeling some symptoms. I get the video analysis. The faster I addressed it, the faster my pain went away.
Mhm.
And the more I went back to normal volume, but without symptoms.
And now, well, I mean, on your video analysis, you went up by how many points?
Uh,
A lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
almost 20,
You
almost
got a-
20%.
You got above 80.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is
so-
awesome.
Yeah. So, that leads into volume management, because one thing you said, and as a runner, I can attest to this, runners run.
Yeah.
It's what we like doing. It's when our heads are clear. It similar to weightlifting for you. If we're not doing it, we're cranky.
Yeah, you feel off. Yeah.
So volume management is something that we see done fairly poorly in this population, because we like to.
Or not done at all. It just
Yeah.
Very poorly was a nice
And,
way of
and,
saying.
and I would say, like, not to pick on runners, just so they know, like, we treat multiple other athletes of
Oh,
every
yeah.
other sport, and every other sport is the same way too.
Yes.
It's just we're talking about running.
Yeah.
If this is a CrossFit
Yeah.
conversation, it's CrossFitting too,
Yeah.
you know? So like everybody does it. It's just runners have that particular thing because most runners who really enjoy running, I've had runners who literally run 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that it's literally so ingrained into them that asking them to decrease their mileage or something by a small amount feels like a personal affront.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, that's not the case. I'm just trying to make it to where you can still do this and not have an injury that actually sidelines you to where you can't
Yeah.
do this.
And if you ask these same people, hey, would you think it's smart to do CrossFit 7 days a week? Or would you want a pitcher to pitch 7 days a week?
Right.
They would tell you no. But running has this sort of misconception of it's easy to do.
Yeah, I'm designed to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
When I think one of my favorite phrases is most people think you have to run to be fit. And in reality, you have to be fit to run.
Correct. I think, yeah, it kind of changed. I don't know, whatever year that was it on The Biggest Loser, they did a full marathon where it just became like, well, if I'm going to lose weight or if I'm going to be fit, I have to run a marathon or I have to run long distance. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at all. So how do we, without coming in and getting the consult of a performance PT, how do we manage volume? Like what is the basics of volume management for somebody who either is an avid runner but has symptoms, or somebody who's like, I want to get into running, where do I start?
And I'll add a kind of tangent to that question, but typically runners think there's only one way to run, and that's just go.
Right.
So what are
Yes.
some other ways we can
Yeah.
manipulate the running routine that will also affect volume management and still allow you to run?
What's the most common program in the world? Add mileage each week.
Right.
I mean, that's just, I could put
Gotta,
that on.
I gotta build my base.
I could
I
put
got- I
that
gotta
on a
build my
Word
base.
document and sell that for $2.99 and we're good to go. Yeah, so that's a good question.
So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. So the first thing would be, if you're an avid runner, I would just assess what's your mileage at right now, right? And if you had a recent increase of pain or symptoms, did it occur with a recent increase of mileage or speed, right? And then address those things. So if it's a recent increase of mileage, can we decrease that mileage down to where you were before pain? Does that pain go away? So it's probably just stress induced from increased duration. If it's an increase in speed, can you reduce your speed back down to where it was before pain? And does it go away? So is it just that you progressed either too quickly, too much, whatever? And then we can address that to answer your question, to where maybe we're doing intervals within your run of one of those two things. Of, if you want to work speed work, either you have a speed day, like if you work on the first program, you have a day that's devoted just to speed. Or can you, if you're running a 3-mile run, can you run 2 half-mile blocks at a faster speed? There's so many different ways of doing it. And honestly, it's going to, be a personal decision on what works best for your schedule and what works best for you as a runner. But that'd be one way to do it.
Which that first program, that's I mean, that's mostly what we recommend here.
Yeah, that's my favorite program.
It is very well researched. The reason that we like it is because there are different components to each muscle, and there are different components to your cardiovascular system. Just working one component repetitively with increased volume doesn't make you as athletic,
Correct.
which decreases your ability to do the exact thing you're wanting to do.
Yeah, especially if you're a duration runner, and then, you know, you can find hills in Tulsa, but you can also just work flats a lot of times, and you come to a hill that demands a different set of muscles. You have to push harder. It's going to demand more of your cardiovascular system. And if you're not used to training that, that's going to be problematic. You're going to have issue. And if you can, you know, some people will just get that kind of wild hair. Well, I need to be a really good runner. I'm going to do just tons of hills. And then that causes a whole different set of problems. I mean, you didn't do it on purpose, but like, you know, you ran hills and your sciatic nerve flared up because your body was like, yeah, absolutely not, you know? So it's finding that balance.
You know, and that takes me back to the warm-up question. Something else I explain a lot to my runners is the principle of oxygen debt, right? And I won't go in the weeds here, but the way your body uses oxygen, if you don't warm up, one, you go into oxygen debt. It takes you longer to catch up during your race. So that's why your first few miles don't feel that good. But if you haven't trained the cardiovascular system and then the machinery in the muscle to do that particular style of running, just like you said, if you hit a hill in a run and you're not trained for speed work and power, you're going to gas out pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then doesn't matter if the next 2 miles are flat, you're going to have oxygen debt.
It's going to hurt.
And what happens, we see this on our video software. What happens as the run progresses and people start to get tired?
Yeah, everything starts to decrease. Like usually the things that, so like on the way we've been doing it is a 10-minute run, and a lot of people are fine with that. But if we right about that 7-8 minute mark is when we'll start to see either a discrepancy between your left and right leg. Like if you do have an issue with your left leg, we'll start to see the discrepancy increase. Or as we analyze what you do, we start to see your form break down. There's a lot of different things that occur.
Yeah, and that's where, when we were talking earlier about dropping to 50%,
right,
you can still get cardiovascular work done without gassing yourself out and bringing on the inefficiencies in how you run that caused your trauma in the first place.
And if you're fortunate enough to, you know, go to a gym or something like that, you could do, if you're concerned about your cardio component, you could do another form of cardio that is going to change. Like if you are going to run 4 miles, you do 2 miles outside or 2 miles on a treadmill, you could ride a bike for 15 or 20 minutes to increase that cardiovascular part without the stressors of running. We can do this a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Over this winter, in order to build, I do a lot of my running and training on heart rate zones, with using the first principle. And so it was cold and I didn't want to run at 5 a.m. in 25 degrees. So I got on my indoor bike and I put on a movie and I stayed in my low and slow heart rate 2. And I did that for about 90 minutes, a few times a week. And that built my tolerance up so much that when I got back to running, my heart rate stayed where I wanted it.
Yeah.
But I didn't do any running. I just used my heart rate zone to build that machinery.
Right.
So I know we're kind of getting in the weeds there, but it all ties.
It all ties together. And
Yeah.
doing something different can decrease the chance of repetitive stress injury.
Yeah.
So cross training is very important.
So on a broad spectrum, let's say you're training for Route 66 in November. What, 4 months out?
Something like that.
Yeah, right about.
What should that training block kind of look like? Are we, you know, putting gas on the fire and just, I'm gonna start running 5 miles a day now? Or
I mean,
what
obviously the first thing is where you're starting from. If we're starting from baseline 0, no. You know, we're gonna have to ease into that, like, because usually there's 16-week programs if you go like a pre-written program.
Typically.
Yeah. So I mean, if we're gonna set you up for the best route of success, in my opinion, is we're probably gonna run 3 days a week and do 2 cross training days, and you could have like 1 active recovery day, and then 1 day where you probably just don't do anything.
Mhm.
You're like, and you could choose that as like your busiest day of the week in the sense of like work or other stressors of like maybe take that off or whatever works best for your schedule. But a lot like that first program that I like is that you have your speed day that's a little bit shorter. You have a pace day that is moderate, and then you have like your long run day. But the long run day, if you're starting from a baseline of 0, maybe a walk run of an accumulative 2 to 3 miles. It just depends on what we're going for. Like right now, you probably have to have a little bit of mileage just because 26.2 in November it would be a little challenging on you.
But that, I mean, that addresses the most common misconception is the more I've run, the more prepared I will be.
Right.
And when I worked at Ironman Sports Medicine down in Houston, and we worked with numerous professional Ironman athletes. So they cannot run 6 days a week. They have 2 other disciplines that they have to be elite at. For their marathon training, they're running 3 days a week, which sounds so low to your general average runner, but they're running at elite levels.
I was gonna say, and just like you pointed out, like especially if they're a high level triathlete, most of those people are going to beat a recreational runner in a marathon time, and that's after having swam and run, or excuse me, biked for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah,
they're just and they only do that 3 days a week. Again, it comes down to efficiency and getting other forms of cardio and all that stuff, whereas like you don't have to only run to be a good runner.
Local athlete we know well here, he just won the half Ironman. It wasn't actually an Ironman sanctioned race, but the half distance. He ran his half marathon time at 6:30 per mile, and he is not a runner.
Right.
So it's doable.
Yeah.
You don't have to just run 7 days a week to be a good runner.
You want to make your runs count. You want to practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to make sure every run is a positive run, not just that it's on the schedule for Friday and I have to do 4 and I feel really poorly and I'm going to run anyway because I have to. Those 4 miles are not going to be beneficial in any sense of the word.
Yeah.
So
especially if 2 miles in you start hurting and you just
push through it.
Yeah. Right. So I mean that kind of covers warm up, that covers the basics of volume. There's so much to that we could talk about. Yeah. I think, and then there's no reason to push through it. I think those are probably the most common 3. I would say a competitor for top 3 is when we ask, do you strength train?
Yeah, that's I just kind of consider that part of running. But yeah, when you ask that question, especially to somebody who just likes to run, the typical thing is like, I run hills or I do sprints.
Right.
And then I will follow that up with like, yeah, do you do anything that doesn't involve running? And the answer is usually no.
Now, you ask that question because you're a PT, right?
Yeah.
The general population, most of them, and I can attest, most of them run because they don't like to strength train.
Correct.
So why do they need to?
Yeah, well, and part of it is like strength training doesn't mean that you have to go to Planet Fitness and get on the Smith machine and all that good stuff. We can do a lot of it with light bands at home. Like it doesn't have to be in insanely heavy weights or anything like that, but we want to strengthen the surrounding muscles. So like running is done in a linear plane for the most part. You're running straight ahead. And typically the most common injuries that occur with running are overuse or lateral hip injuries that lead to problems down the chain of the knee or the ankle or the foot. So we have to address the muscles on the side of your hip that help decrease swaying, things like that. But making those muscles strong make you more efficient. Making you more efficient means you can run longer and or faster over a period of time. So addressing all the nuances of what muscles have to work while you run help you run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will typically ask, and most of them can, and it's okay, but I'll ask, can you do a pistol squat?
Right.
And absolutely not, right?
Right.
And then I ask him, or I point out, your whole entire sport is single leg activity. The difference between power walking and running is running, you don't have 2 feet on the ground at any point.
Right.
Your entire sport is single leg. So I don't need you necessarily to go deadlift 400 pounds.
Right.
But you need to be good and stable and strong on single leg.
Yeah, on both legs
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Because you'll have the people who are like, oh, my left leg's great. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, what about your right leg? No, not so much. And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, every other step you take is on that right leg. So we should probably address that.
And most of those people will say, my left leg is strong. And so it's not that, because my left leg is the one that hurts.
Right.
And I say, that's because your left leg is
Yeah, it's doing
everything.
all the
It's
work,
doing
right?
everything. Yeah. And it's easy for us because we study this and we love this stuff. We're
Yeah,
interested
and
in it.
I've seen probably, I don't know, a couple thousand runners by this point.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you kind of see the trends and the traits like, oh yeah, well, just do this. Like, it's really easy. But when you're living it from the outside, well, my left knee hurts. Something's wrong with my left knee. Yeah, the something wrong is that it's way too strong. It's doing everything, and your right leg's not doing anything.
Yeah. The local transmission shop has seen probably at least 1,000 transmissions.
Yeah.
He can diagnose my issue in less than 10 minutes, something that would take me probably a few weeks to figure out.
I would just be like, I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I'll just trade it in.
Yeah, exactly.
New car.
It doesn't work. Please make it
Yeah.
work,
Yeah. So hopefully these kind of talks, and then when they come see us, we can shed some light.
Yeah.
Because our goal, like I mentioned or alluded to earlier, is we want to keep everybody on the trail. We never want to say just stop. And if we say just stop, it's like
I'm really concerned.
we're concerned, and the answer isn't stop, it's stop for now.
Yeah, a lot of time, especially it's with like younger runners or people who are just getting into running, who, like we kind of talked about, maybe that volume load increased dramatically or speed increased dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things of, I just want you to back up a couple of days just to see if those symptoms go away. If they go away, that's a really good sign. If they don't, that's where, we have to go talk about other things. But very rarely are you going to hear me say no, or, you never get to do that.
Right.
It's trying to find that happy medium of getting to do the thing to a degree, but making it to where you can do that pain-free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that should basically cover it. Maybe we'll end up doing some more episodes on the specifics of this stuff, but
yeah,
I would say that's the top 3/4 issues. That probably makes up 98% of our runners. So we love to treat runners. We've all treated a lot of them. And we don't want people to have that stigma or fear that walking in our door means we're going to tell you should stop doing what you're doing. So yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. We could talk for hours on that stuff.
Yeah. We got to get on a phone call. So